Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Veterans who may have been exposed to toxic burn pits need to file a claim today in order to be eligible for retroactive health benefits dating back to last year. It is part of the Honoring Our Pact Act, which expanded health care for millions of post-9/11 veterans exposed to burn pits and other toxic substances on the battlefield. CBS's Natalie Brandt has more from Capitol Hill.
Army veteran Dan Nevins returned from Iraq with visible wounds of war, having survived an IED explosion in 2004. What he didn't realize, his health battles would only intensify.
I lost both legs as a result of my service. I lived with a traumatic brain injury. And in those moments, I'm like, I never even considered all long-term ramifications from toxic exposure. It wasn't even on my radar.
Toxic exposure from burn pits, commonly used on bases overseas during the War on Terror, a practice now linked to more than 20 illnesses and cancers.
When I got diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, I was completely blindsided.
And Nevin's battle with cancer coincided with the passage 1 year ago of the bipartisan Honoring Our Pact Act, which expanded VA health care and benefits to veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances. The legislation also lifted the burden of proof from veterans, some of whom had previously fought for years to get their claims approved.
People that selflessly fight to take care of other people are my heroes.
The claims process now can take just months or even days, says Mike Stoddard of the Wounded Warrior Project.
And the presumptives in the PACT Act make this really easy for us to do. These aren't hard claims to get done.
The VA now reports a nearly 80% approval rate, up sharply from just a quarter of claims before the PACT Act passed. Survivors like Nevins urge veterans who have been exposed to file and get checked out, even if they feel fine. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Washington.
Even if veterans miss the deadline to get retroactive benefits, they can still file new claims after today's deadline. A horrible incident out of Houston, Texas. Police say a 3-month-old boy died on yesterday after the baby's mother left him in a hot car. The assistant chief says the mother and a 4-year-old were visiting a mental health center. After the visit, the mother was getting ready to drive away when she found her baby still in the car. Efforts to save the infant failed. Police are investigating how long the baby was left inside the vehicle. It's unclear if police will file any charges. One person was taken to a hospital this morning after a vehicle hit a gas pump in Indianapolis. Indy Metro Police Department officers responded to a 2-car crash at the Valero gas station. The person taken to the hospital was listed in critical condition. The other driver involved was later taken to a hospital for a blood draw. At this time, police have not said what led to the crash. The Paramount Plus docuseries Never Seen Again is back for a 4th season, exploring cases of families grappling with the disappearance of a loved one. The new season begins with a 2-part story about 15-year-old Kristen Galvin, who went missing in Texas back in 2020. Her mother believes she's the victim of sex trafficking. Rachel Fisher, a forensic nurse in Houston and a survivor of sex trafficking, appears in the series.
Kids are either running to something or from something. You never know exactly what home life is like, and it's not always the fault of the home. It could just be being allured by this charmingly bright lights, money, gifts, this life, and so they run to that.
You can catch new episodes of Never Seen Again on Paramount Plus. An American nurse and her child have been released after being kidnapped in Haiti 2 weeks ago. Alex Dorsonville and her child were abducted from Port-au-Prince 2 weeks ago. The pair were working in a community ministry at the time. They were actually kidnapped on the same day the State Department ordered non-emergency U.S. government employees and families to leave the country because of crime and poor health care infrastructure, among other issues.
Well, quiet weather continues across the mountains into the early parts of your evening. However, we are watching out for some changes as we go into tonight. Right now on the radar, most of us are dry. However, we are watching out for a new shower not too far away from downtown Louisa on the Kentucky and West Virginia border. Nothing is too heavy here, but a spotty shower nonetheless, pushing into Wayne County, West Virginia at this hour. As we zoom out, notice more showers off to the west over portions of western Kentucky, also western Tennessee, and these will continue pushing off to the east as our next weather system pushes into the mountains. We do have a level 1 risk of excessive rainfall across the mountains tonight. Also a level 1 risk of severe weather, mainly from Pineville to London to Mount Vernon and back to the south and west. So for the Cumberland Valley, a level 1 risk is in place. Again, we're not looking at widespread problems, but we cannot rule out a spotty strong storm or maybe some spotty high water issues, especially in the Cumberland Valley. Those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Cameron, thank you. The Kentucky Realtors Relief Foundation and the National Association of Realtors Relief Foundation have partnered to provide $100,000 in relief funds to those in western Kentucky affected by the flooding last month. The Kentucky Realtors Relief Foundation has provided nearly $2 million in funding since the December 2021 tornadoes that hit western Kentucky and the flooding that occurred here in eastern Kentucky last year.
And I know we're not the only organization that came through during a difficult time, but a number of our members have been boots on the ground, have distributed checks in person, have physically walked to the properties and held and hugged the people who were negatively affected. The stories are numerous.
Funding is limited to 1 month of housing expenses up to $1,000. Those impacted by the flooding are encouraged to apply at kyrealtors.com/relief. Applications are open now and are due by September 30th. Credit card debt across the country is on the rise. Total household debt reached more than $17 trillion, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Julia Sandor spoke to local experts about ways to avoid it.
Whether you swipe or tap your credit card, your transaction always comes at a cost.
It's so easy to swipe the card, but it's difficult to let it go.
Credit card debt is at an all-time high across the country, hitting $1.3 trillion. If you find yourself in a crunch and are unsure how to properly finance for your debt, the Better Business Bureau says it's important to do your research before giving out your information.
One of the biggest red flags that the Better Business Bureau likes to advise consumers about if they're considering going with one of these is anybody who promises to repair your credit immediately and erase bad credit is someone you want to run away from. It took you a while to get into this situation. It's going to take a while to dig out of it. And anybody that tells you differently may not have your best interests at heart and may just want to take your money if nothing else.
According to a study by Wallet Hub, Kentucky ranks 3rd among the states with the lowest credit card debts. It says the median amount of credit card debt is just over $2,200 and on average takes around 11 months to pay it off. Here in Lexington, Prosper KY is one service that works with you to help improve your credit.
Responsible financial behavior is #1 aspect that we bring to our clients' life. And that's very, very important. Therefore, we bring understanding that credit card limits is not your money.
They say it isn't a problem that can be fixed overnight, but with patience and persistence, they can work with you to manage those finances. In Lexington, Julia Sandor, WKYT.
In the quarterly report from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, credit card balances increased by $45 billion. Updated COVID-19 vaccines for this fall are expected to be available in October. The vaccines target the most recent variant that's circulating called XBB 1.5. Dr. Mark Doherty is the hospital epidemiologist at Baptist Health Lexington and an infectious disease specialist. He says the XBB 1.5 variants are all related to the Omicron variant that's been circulating for more than a year now.
The old antibodies that were formed from the previous doses just aren't very active against the new strain.
The FDA is expected to give approval to the XBB 1.5 vaccine along with 2 other ones during the next 2 months. At that time, the CDC will also give new recommendations before they are actually rolled out. The medication shortage is continuing to impact pharmacies in Kentucky. Within the last year, pharmacies across the nation have been seeing shortages in various medications. Lexington pharmacies are also going through that as well, but especially, we're told, with ADHD medications. Clarence Sullivan, who is a pharmacist and pharmacy shop owner, says the shortage may cause issues for school-aged children as they get ready to head back for another year. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, billions of dollars are lost in cybercrime schemes each year. We'll have some tips you can take to avoid falling victim.
Plus,